r/explainlikeimfive. Nossi says. ELI5, why is a housing market crash a bad thing? I can't seem to find an answer online that's dumbed down enough for me to understand. I can't see the downside to houses getting cheaper. What kind of struggles do homeowners go through when the market is down? What else changes besides the price of their home? I know almost nothing about economics, so a simple explanation would be appreciated. Lil Poo 55 Ibarect 69 says. For many people their home is their single most valuable asset. To have the valuation of that tank destroys the finances of millions of people and can set their retirement back a decade. Any Growth 8158 says. If you own a house and the price goes down you get less money if you sell your house. If you're not selling your house then it's not a big deal if prices go back up at a later date. But you may be forced to sell due to a loss of income, a need to move to a new location for a job and you are unable to afford multiple mortgages, etc. How would you feel if you had $100,000 last year and someone took it this year? This is exactly what happens to someone whose home was $100,000 more last year and has to sell now due to changes in life. This is especially bad for people who bought the home at the top of the market. They may owe more money than their house is worth. They lose their down payment, which is generally a large sum of money for people, and if they can't pay the difference their credit takes a major hit, and even if the bank forgives the difference the IRS does not, they treat the forgiveness as earned income. Buying a house is a risk, but it still sucks losing what to most is a lot of money. r/explainlikeimfive. Throwawayable says. ELI5 what a holding company does for a bank. Lofleer84 says. A holding company is a company whose only business is to own other companies. Its purpose is to limit the legal and financial liability of the owners. For a bank, this means that the holding company can own several different banking companies, and if one of them has a problem, it remains isolated to that one subsidiary company without affecting the rest of the conglomerate. Burial says. A holding company is a company that runs other companies instead of producing anything on their own. The companies they run could be banks or anything else. r/explainlikeimfive. Chicken_daddy says. ELI5, how do we see Mercury and Venus at night? As the caption asks. Shouldn't they be hidden from view because they would only be facing the side of Earth that's facing the sun? Nonthgul says. Venus is known as the morning star, and this name have been used for Mercury as well. Similarly the planets have been called the evening star as well, often thought to be different planets. This is because the planets is only visible in dawn or dusk against the rising or setting sun. And they are not usually visible depending on the phase of their orbit. So your premise that Mercury and Venus is visible at night is false, at least for most of the night. Garbage_truck says. They are. Both of them are only possible not see as sunrise or as dusk, and even then you might miss them because they can be behind the Sunday, especially Mercury that's due to being so close is basically tidally locked to the Sunday. Cheap Monkey 34 says. They can be seen on the dark side of the Earth low over the horizon. Never straight above for the reason you're stating. I usually complain says. Mercury and Venus are two planets that are closer to the sun than Earth is. Sometimes they appear in the sky just after the sun has set or just before the sun is about to rise. This is because they are in the same direction as the sun from our point of view on Earth. So, even though it's nighttime on Earth, we can still see Mercury and Venus in the sky because they are reflecting the light from the sun. It's kind of like how the moon reflects the light from the sun to light up the night sky. r/explainlikeimfive. Poll_smockin_bandit says. ELI5, is there something measurable in our brains that explains why people's innate intellect varies so widely? The Solar Princess says. We don't know. Albert Einstein's brain has been studied extensively, and one curious thing we have found is that he had way more glial cells relative to neurons than it would normally be expected. However, we don't really know if that's related to his intelligence or just a coincidence. If we look at the difference in intelligence between animals, we can notice that animals with a bigger encephalization quotient are generally more intelligent. But this is only a correlation, and we don't really know which way the causation is working. Spiritual_Jaguar 4685 says. Not that we've specifically found. If you just had a brain on the table, there isn't anything measurable about it that could tell you how smart the person was. People's brains do different in size, shape, etc. But those differences don't correlate to cognitive ability that we can see. The truth so far as we can see is the differences are too subtle. Things like how the bits are all there, just wired up together differently, and or the chemistry of the brain is subtly different from person to person. You might have heard the term neurodiversity being tossed around, or might want to look into it. The idea being roughly that there isn't an ideal brain type, and that rather than grouping people into normal and people with ADHD or other disorders we need to consider everyone on a spectrum. That ADHD isn't so much a disorder than just a different type for brain, in the same way that someone who can run 4-minute miles doesn't have a disorder, they are just physically different. r/explainlikeimfive. Strawfruit Juice says. ELI5, why are we not using thorium reactors if they are better in every way? Kudzu Ninja says. We don't know, for sure, how to build them effectively. We built uranium reactors with military research. You can't make bombs with thorium. I had physics professor tell me there were concerns about clogging/corrosion in the cooling lines because of how they'd have to be made. Pegajace says. They are not better in every way. Uranium-fueled reactors are better at generating weapons-grade nuclear material, like plutonium-239. Because of this one advantage, superpowers like the US government have sunk many billions of dollars into road for uranium-fueled reactors over many decades, meaning uranium reactor technology is now far more mature than thorium reactor technology, making it relatively inexpensive and efficient, because so many of its issues are already known and solved. r/explainlikeimfive. As Squa says. ELI5, what are hyperparameters, and why are they so important to AI? Other Willow 647 says. Hyperparameters are settings that control the behavior of an AI model. They are important because they determine how well the model performs and how quickly it learns. Atom Canister says. Input to the algorithm that the programmer has to tune themselves. In other words, just parameters. The hyper is mainly there to distinguish them from parameters that the AI learns by itself from the training data. One of the most prevalent hyperparameters is, for instance, the learning rate. When you feed new data to the AI, it can calculate in which direction it has to change in order to better fit that data. It's basically trying to get to the point of lowest error by checking which way is down. But how far it should follow this way is up to the programmer. There's no knowing whether the slope continues for a while or whether there's a mountain of high error just ahead. The learning rate is this how far, and it's basically just trial and error to adjust it. Set it too low, it takes forever to get a good result. Set it too high, and you'll overshoot every good result learned. r/explainlikeimfive. London Pilot says. ELI5, how does CORS help security? I understand the mechanics of CORS, cross-origin resource sharing, in the context of APIs on the internet. I understand that when a browser loads a page from site A, and that page includes code which requests data from site B, the browser attaches an origin tag to the data request, and server B will deny the request if it's not configured to allow CORS. I understand that modern browsers might make a pre-flight request before the actual request for data to see if cause is allowed. What I don't understand is how this helps anyone or anything. Imagine him trying to access some data which I'm not allowed to access. So I write some JavaScript to perform a GET request, and I discover that the request is denied because of the cause policy. So now, what's to stop me using curl or postman to send that same request, but with a fake origin which matches site B? How does the implementation of cause help in a real-life security context? Thanks. Deadmist says, it's not so much about data, but scripts. Suppose an attacker has found a way to inject some malicious code into website A via XSS perhaps, but the attack only allows for a very small amount of code. Well, then he can just load the rest of the code from website B, which he controls. Cause gives you a way to prevent that. When your browser tries to load the code from website B, it first checks a list of allowed websites that it received from website A via the cause header. If website B is not on there, it won't allow that request. Cause protects the users of website A from being tricked into interacting with website B. That's all for this video. Was it good? I know not, for I'm a robot. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe. This video is the product of an automated process.